I hope this finds the right side of TikTok, but does life feel weird to anybody else? Does it feel almost fake to you right now? Because it honestly feels like a fever dream.
2020 smashed our existences into our phones and into the digital world. This is why life does not feel like reality. It's because we're not in reality anymore.
We don't cook, we DoorDash, we don't talk, we type, we don't think. We spend $15 a month on a robot to do all of that for us. Our attention spans have died off and we make jokes about it like it's funny.
I'm in my late 20s and I feel like I'm missing out on so much, but I don't know what.
I think our generation is perpetually nostalgic, and that's because we're chronically documenting everything.
Every little moment had weight to it. And then somewhere along the way, that life just flattened out. Like, when's the last time that you genuinely looked around and felt something real?
Do you remember when life felt more vivid, specifically in childhood when everything seemed to be more saturated with color? Hot summer afternoons spent laying in freshly cut grass, the crunch of golden leaves under your feet on a crisp autumn morning, or cozying up with a blanket beneath the glow of incandescent Christmas tree lights? It's a feeling we're all familiar with, but one that now feels just out of reach. Instead, these days, it's not that all color is gone, but more like life has been dulled. Memories blur together, surprises are few and far between, and any novelty arrives muted. Yes, a part of that is just growing up, but there's more at play here. Because as we grew up and our lives became inseparable from screens, the lens through which we see the world has changed. Here, our physical and virtual realities meld together, forcing curation, optimization, and idealization into our everyday lives. It's to the point that even when we eventually do unplug, we can't help but feel disappointed at how underwhelming the real world is. So we cling to algorithmically curated experiences and nostalgia spirals to try and feel that magic again. And yet it always falls short. So that's what we're going to dissect today, how the digital world reshaped the way we perceive and interact with the modern world, and ultimately why nothing feels real anymore. So to begin, I'd like to ask you a question. When was the last time you heard someone say you had to be there? I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess not in a while. And that's because in our current day and age, most of us have been there, digitally anyway. But the reason I can make that assumption is because we actually do have data to back it. Shown here, the phrase rose steadily in popularity from the 1960s until the year 2012, when its use dropped precipitously, which just so happened to be the same year that Snapchat launched, the app that's designed to let users share their every mundane moment carefree, knowing that that picture would disappear in just 10 seconds. But more importantly, this lays the groundwork for the larger story going on here of how our real lives and digital lives have become intertwined. Because while you may not have physically been there, you were there to experience it in a different way. Or you could say that a different version of you experienced it. Now, I won't get into the world of fragmented realities, but it is worth noting that while our lived experience of this reality is new, it has been anticipated for quite some time. In social psychologist Kenneth Gergen's book, The Saturated Self, he warned of an Orwellian world where technology might saturate human beings to the point of multifuria, a fragmented version of the self that is pulled in so many directions the individual would be lost. "I am linked, therefore I am," he famously said. Little did Dr. Gergen know how dead on his prediction would be.
Life since 2020 just hasn't, we almost can't even remember it. It doesn't really feel like it's been reality, and it's feel like it's been erased from our actual life. The cause of this phenomenon is the fact that we're not living life in reality anymore. 2020 smashed our existences into our phones and into the digital world, and we are no longer existing in our physical space and only dealing with problems that are within our circle of influence. And our brains have become completely connected to this artificial device.
Now, while we may think it's not that deep, like what's the harm in seeing what our friends and strangers are up to through our screens? But as it turns out, it is actually changing the foundation of how we engage with the world around us. This is because it distorts our reality to the point where we actually lose sense of ourselves.
This isn't real.
Okay, but what does that actually mean? Well, for example, say you watch someone's day in the life vlog on TikTok where they go to that new restaurant in the town that you live in and it looks so good. The vibrant colors, the cozy atmosphere, their gooey, crunchy food that they do the whole influencer gasp over and the finger eating thing.
Why is that so good?
So of course you have to go try it for yourself. But when all is said and done, while you probably did have a good time, you might feel like the whole experience fell flat. And not just because the influencer was overselling the experience for views, you knew that going into it. Whoa. What's more impactful is that you saw it digitally before going out and experiencing it for yourself. Interestingly, this confuses your brain as it has a hard time differentiating between the two realities. It's as if you've already lived it out, so when you physically went to the restaurant, it was already your second time go around. As a result, this often leads to the feeling of letdown because we've lost a sense of novelty before we even got to live it. On top of that, you add in the highlight reel effect of it all, where the lived experience doesn't hold up to the perfectly curated version we saw online. And that's why people often say they're disappointed by reality, not because it was objectively worse, but because it's not the digital version from their head. Now, this is not just isolated to the age of the internet, but something that has been plaguing humanity for as long as we've had photography and videography. Like before the online era, it was very common for people visiting the Eiffel Tower to say that they were surprised because it was smaller than they expected. Even though the Eiffel Tower is objectively amazing, right? By comparison, imagine if you had never seen or heard about the Eiffel Tower before, and while you're walking in Paris, you turn a corner just to stumble upon this soaring metal tower masterpiece that is completely unlike anything you've ever seen before. I bet that when you got home, you would be going all around town, raving about how unique and breathtaking it was. And that's because you had zero expectations and zero comparables, right? There was nothing squashing the reality you were living. And we've all had a version of this Paris syndrome, as they call it, even if on a smaller scale. One where someone talks something up too much, and so you expect more than was delivered, leaving us with a sense of disillusionment when reality doesn't match up. And of course, there's a word for everything, so the word for this is expectation disconfirmation, which is that the gap between expectation and reality affects your satisfaction and perception. So here's the deal. We have enough to worry about with the digital world corrupting our real lives. We also don't need to be worrying about things like, say, our shoes destroying our feet. I'm just at a place in life where I'm always running after my young kids, and so if I need band-aids to wear my cute shoes, it's not happening. But that's where today's partner, Vivaia, comes in, because with them, you don't have to compromise style for comfort. The Vivaia promise is simple style that's sustainable, stylish, and unbelievably comfortable. It's basically built for the modern woman, which is exactly why I love working with Vivaia and have partnered with them so many times. I recently picked up the Icon loafer in Toffee Brown, and let me tell you, this is my new everyday shoe for spring. It's just the perfect blend of academic and sleek, basically a guaranteed hit with any outfit I throw together. These bad boys are made from a soft knit breathable mesh and are super lightweight, so I can just throw them on and walk all day without feeling any pressure. With that, they have heel blister protection, which is a cushioned anti-rub patcher right here in the heel. And it gets even better, they are machine washable, which is literally the ultimate lazy girl hack. On the total opposite side of the style spectrum, I got the Margot Mary Janes in cream French floral mesh, which are just the most precious shoes I've ever seen. Hand drawn by a French artist, the floral embroidery beneath the sheer mesh is just so stunning, and they're just as soft and weightless as they look. With the triple layer sole, it really feels like you're just walking on clouds. I actually have a wedding to go to this summer, and I am just imagining how good it's gonna feel when I whip these bad boys out as a relief at the reception. But it just goes to show that if you're looking for something more classic like the loafers or unique and girly like the Mary Janes, you can always find your perfect pair at Vivaia. So if you've been searching for comfortable style, this is your sign. I've linked everything in the description box, and with my discount code VAE, which stands for Vivaia Ashley Embers, you can get 12% off within the first 3 days after this video goes live, and then 10% off afterwards. Thank you so much to Vivaia for sponsoring today's video. The thing is, it's not just disappointment we have to deal with, but the fact that things don't even feel real anymore. As said here, writer Henry Schuckman admitted to being disappointed when he first saw the Grand Canyon. It was so vast and so familiar from innumerable pictures, he wrote. It might just as well have been a picture. Many of us have felt this sense of ennui when confronting landmarks familiar to us only through images. An uneasy realization that the reality before us was somehow more diluted, less real than we had expected. Just like the loss in novelty, our brains have only ever consumed these moments in media, and so we don't have the ability to differentiate between the real version and the digital version that has hijacked our minds.
I thought it was way bigger than that.
Even though the thing is physically right there in front of you.
This is something that I always thought was funny because these are mountains, even though they look like hills. No snow. And then you look here, and these ones are covered in snow. I always laugh so much about that because I feel like it's the Truman Show and we just have fake mountains, and if we actually walked over there, they'd just be big painted cutouts on a set.
I remember experiencing this as a kid on a family trip to the Okanagan. While not quite the same scale as the Grand Canyon, I was still so confused by the mountainous desert scene before me. Not because I hadn't seen a mountain before, we are very spoiled with snowy mountains here in the Vancouver area, but because it didn't feel real. If anything, it felt like I was looking at a giant postcard that was used as a backdrop for the desert, Truman Show style. But the reason why I thought this was, again, because I had only ever seen desert mountains in, I don't know, maybe magazines or like school books or something. And so my brain was having a hard time taking it out of the print format. But all of these examples are BI, or before internet. Now take that phenomenon and amplify it times 1,000,000%. Because today, when most people are spending 6+ hours on their phones every day, consuming videos of places we've never been, reading blog posts on the must-see landmarks, and reviews of the best coffee shops in the area, it's impossible to avoid this distortion of reality. Meaning that when you finally get the opportunity to live out these dreams, the actual experience feels mundane and artificial.
There is a reason why you don't feel joy anymore, even in the things you used to love, because we live in a world of non-stop input. The average person spends about 6 hours a day online, gets about 240 notifications per day, and sees over 5,000 ads in a single day. That is more information than a human nervous system was ever designed to process.
And the worst part is that this isn't just for the big events in your life, but it bleeds into the smaller moments. Whether you're taking up running or alcohol pen coloring or learning a new dinner recipe, our digital lives are pre-processing and exaggerating everyday moments and leaving life overall feeling dull and objectively worse. And so we found ourselves amidst the dissolution of novelty, as if wherever you go, you have a little troll on your shoulder blurting out the punchline to every good moment before it unfolds. But the digital world doesn't just ruin our future self, it is of course disrupting how we navigate the present moment as well. And that's because since we're experiencing things before we actually do them, we don't have the opportunity to build up to anything, meaning we're missing out on the anticipation. Normally we spend our time leading up to events processing and again anticipating what could be, like how it will feel or what things will look like. But if you already know what it's going to be like, then we don't get to daydream about the outcome. And that is a huge loss because anticipation is actually where we get most of our dopamine out of experiences, not the end results. Like that feeling weeks leading up to a vacation, or dreaming about a future home, or hearing the birthday girl unlock the front door as everyone shushes each other in anticipation for the synchronous happy birthday. We love a good lead up. Neuroscientific studies have shown that dopamine, often called the pleasure chemical, actually peaks during anticipation rather than consumption. When we're looking forward to something, our brain releases more dopamine than when we're experiencing it. And there's a few reasons why we get this dopamine rush today. For one, because our brains can create and mentally experience the scenario in the most idealized way. But also, there can't be any disappointment when your brain is making the rules. Whereas the real event is commonly riddled with letdowns and not measuring up, even when you take media spoilers out of the equation. That is what's happening when we live these fragmented digital lives. Because our life really is a box of chocolate, except we know exactly what chocolate we're gonna get, as well as where the ingredients originate and how much sugar is in each bite.
And that's all I have to say about that.
Every time we consume media of the place we're going to go on vacation, or the concert we have tickets to, or even getting reviews of books we're thinking about reading, it all contributes to the bombardment of arrival without the journey, so there's no need to let our minds wander over what could be. Instead, our digital anticipation shortcuts real anticipation, taking most of the fun out of everything.
You ever think about how crazy it is that when we were kids, everything felt like it meant something? Like summer nights, birthday parties, the way the world smelled like when it rained. Every little moment had weight to it. And then somewhere along the way, that life just flattened out. We traded curiosity for routine. We traded wonder for deadlines. We stopped experiencing life and just started managing it.
But the other thing we're missing in the present moment of the digital age is free time, a struggle we're all familiar with. Because as many of us probably feel, life these days is very full, scattered, and overbooked. We're always on, always co-present with each other, and chronically behind somehow. Between the notifications epidemic, 24-hour news cycles, the screen maxing, and the pressure to optimize every moment of our days, it's hard to make time for moments of silence amidst the perpetual noise. What a way to live, isn't it? John Eldridge and Nicholas Carr have criticized social media and the web because we waste so much of our time on mindless pursuits. We click from one piece of content to the next, always in an absent-minded way. C.S. Lewis once wrote that there will only be noise in hell. I'd say we're already living in that reality. We're in the rock-bottom cesspool of noise, wallowing in the stuff and embracing it, choosing it willingly. What a nice quote, hey? But this isn't how people have always lived, right? Like, people used to just putter around, figuring life out as they go and living in the moment. Especially in childhood, before the internet, that was just the way of life. You would head outside with no plan, and next thing you know, you're making cherry blossom petal pie with the neighbor kids. Just me? But it's no surprise we don't live like that anymore. No, today we are so overbooked and high-strung because in the digital age, there are no excuses for falling behind. So you must get ahead by offloading tasks and filling up your downtime. But the side effects of this include the fact that we are closing ourselves off from the unexpected joys of life, meaning the very experience of serendipity is at risk of extinction in the digital age. As said here, I argue that the movement towards a curated life has resulted in a loss of serendipity for the user and the narrowing of the user experience, limiting personal growth and the variety of content users are exposed to. This narrowing effect contributes to a flattening of culture, where culture starts to reflect what the algorithm rewards. And this makes sense, right? Like, how can there be any happy happenstances if every moment is accounted for? Think about most people's days. They wake up, get ready, maybe put on a podcast. On your drive to work, you listen to a made-for-you playlist on Spotify. You go to work, and then on your way back, you repeat the same thing but in reverse order, maybe throw in some doom scrolling. There's no time slot for the unknown coming up and surprising us or rocking our world or changing our perspective or building into a new version of who we want to be. And you can't just time block serendipity into your calendar either. You need a variety of moments of presence. Otherwise, we just lock into a stagnant life with no chance for growth or excitement.
I sorta don't feel like playing my clarinet today.
Because you aren't going to meet your new best friend in the park if your face is buried in your phone the whole time. You aren't going to find that hole-in-the-wall cozy cafe if you only ever go to Google's top-rated coffee shops in your area. You aren't even going to spot a rare bird in your backyard if you don't look up. These accidents become happy because they lead to feelings of serendipity, which heighten enjoyment. When a product, service, or experience is positive, unexpected, and involving chance, the satisfaction with the same tends to be higher. Consumers feel that the encounter was a good surprise, make attributes to chance, and feel lucky that it happened, all of which we collectively call feeling of serendipity. Because in the digital age, you don't get the luxury of discovering something new when your attention is always occupied. The algorithms got us in a chokehold, pre-planning everything so that, God forbid, you don't discover anything on your own. And ultimately, this leads to life feeling repetitive, like every day is Groundhog's Day, and time passes faster than you'd like, because there's no variation cementing new memories into your brain. Even if Netflix is suggesting new movies every night, it's still just another evening watching Netflix, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but I know I'm not the only one that feels like time has been accelerated, like it's speeding up. And I mean that literally. I don't mean it in the way, sometimes people will say when they get older, oh, the older I get, the faster time goes by. Yeah, I don't mean it like that. Something is happening right now where time is actually speeding up, and I feel it in a very real way.
And while this is super sad, it is just our way of life now. Like, just ask yourself, when was the last time in your adult life you lost track of time doing something? Or even worse, wasted time. No, instead, we have completely rid our lives of chance and don't linger long enough to let anything new unfold organically. So we have addressed the future and the present. Now, of course, we need to get into how the digital age impacts the past.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Because in no other point in history have we had so much direct access to our past. Pretty much every app now has a memories feature showing you new, different snapshots of life, literally every day. When I tell you I am addicted to checking my Google Photos, which shows me baby pictures of my children all the time, what a good time that is. But the thing with having so much access to the past is that it kind of blurs the line between the present and the past. Like when I look at those photos of my kids, that baby version of them becomes a part of my current day in a way. And this goes beyond my children's photos, obviously. Like the digitization of movies and shows means that between all these streaming platforms, you can find pretty much any mainstream film ever created. The playlists we meticulously crafted on iTunes are forever reachable, meaning that at any point you can listen to the greatest hits of your high school years, assuming you want to listen to Jason Derulo, Macklemore, and Owl City. Now that you mention it, I could go for some Fireflies. You would not believe. But even our conversations, which used to only live in the moment, are now mostly preserved between email, text messages, voice notes, social media posts, and transcribed Zoom calls. Basically, everything that has ever been digitized or created during the digital age all lives forever. What this means is that we are living through the empire of archives, where anything can be revisited with just a few clicks. Now, I do want to point out that I'm well aware our obsession with nostalgia is nothing new, as it has been a human instinct to see the past with rose-colored glasses. Especially when times get tough, we naturally retreat to the past to better times. Research supports the efficacy of nostalgia as a coping mechanism. As a result of engaging in nostalgic recollections, people often report experiencing a more positive mood, feeling more socially connected, and having a greater sense that their lives are meaningful. But nostalgia has morphed into a far more intense beast compared to earlier times. Previously, nostalgia consisted of maybe looking at an old family photo album or putting on an old record. Now, however, seeing that there's so much information online, we can become completely engulfed in our past.
This is what I think. I think our generation is perpetually nostalgic, but it's like a very specific form of nostalgia for in-between moments of life. And that's because we're chronically documenting everything. And it used to be like you would only take pictures at big life events like graduations, weddings, and birthdays. But now we're photographing literally the eggs we made for breakfast, or like a random run we went on at sunset, or literally just like a selfie of us chilling in bed, looking dusty. And the problem is that we can look at these photos whenever we want. And then we're immediately, when we do look at the photos, we're hit with a pang of what I call micro nostalgia. My most recent picture on my camera roll is a piece of raw chicken. And let me tell you, I was looking at my camera roll this morning and I saw this piece of shiny raw chicken from last night. And I was like, oh, cooking that chicken was so fun. Like, I felt that micro nostalgia. And I don't think I should be feeling nostalgic for the piece of raw chicken that I handled last night.
Our digital devices serve as portals to the past, allowing us to effortlessly access and relive cherished memories with just a few taps or clicks. Whether it's rediscovering beloved songs from decades past on streaming services, or exploring virtual archives filled with cultural artifacts from bygone eras, technology has democratized the nostalgic experience, making it more accessible than ever before. And for a lot of people, they retreat to their safe spaces of days before and stay there as long as they please. That's when the past truly becomes more alive than the present, because in doing so, we live more vividly through those digital memories than in our screen-consumed present. But beyond being stuck in the past, how does this impact us? Well, we now rely on digital storage for memories, and that, my friend, is not free. For example, 6 terabytes from Apple's iCloud is $40 a month, which you might think is a lot of storage, but as a reminder, we document so much of our lives, and if you aren't at 6 terabytes yet, you will eventually get there between the photos of plants you're cross-referencing for prices, the mushroom identification pictures, the experiments from college, or whatever this is. It all gets added into the same junkyard of forgotten photos. But the problem with this digital storage is that it's not necessarily ours to keep. If you've been a viewer for a while, then you've probably seen my video on a future where we own nothing. But if you haven't, the Coles notes include the fact that when we purchase digitized products, we actually have no rights to them, and therefore our access is subject to change as the company evolves over time and internal policies and priorities change with them. This means that while you're maybe paying only $12.99 a month for 2 terabytes of storage, Apple has absolutely no responsibility to maintain the service to you in the future. Time and time again, we see technologies go obsolete as companies either go under or just restructure, as they say. I don't actually know what that means, but they say it a lot. And with that, leave their clients left high and dry to figure out and adjust on their own. This often happens in situations where the stakes aren't so high, like when Google discontinued their Nest alarm system. But just imagine with me for a second, say 20 years from now, when you have all 100 terabytes of your life stored on a cloud, and for some reason or another, the company that stores it all goes under, and they tell you that you have 24 hours notice to download your content before you lose it all. Is it highly unlikely? Of course, like these companies would love nothing more than to keep siphoning money out of our wallets every month for the rest of our lives. But that doesn't mean that it can't happen. Even the most trusted company that you think will be around forever might not. We've seen it before, so it can happen again. And even if the company doesn't fold, things can happen outside of their control that forces them to alter the storage of your memories. Josh and I actually just experienced this like last month. So back in around 2016, we made a playlist of all our favorite songs at the time, which has been left unchanged ever since. While we rarely listen to it now, we do still occasionally put it on for road trips as a stroll down memory lane. Well, when we were on our last road trip, I put the playlist on and a song came on that neither of us recognized, which was super weird because we obviously know every song and have heard them hundreds of times. But as it turned out, the song playing was the one we added, just a different version of it. What was once the original song from an album was changed to the live version. Moving through the playlist, we came across another song that we didn't know at all, and that one we found out to be from the same band that we originally saved, but was a completely different song. So what we figure had happened was the streaming company must have lost rights to those albums and just replaced the songs with the next best option from its reservoir. Suffice to say, Josh and I were in shock and a little heartbroken about that, because these songs are the background music of our dating life, and without our knowledge, they were subject to change and inevitably taken away from us. Now we're left wondering if we need to buy an MP3 player in 2026 just so we can actually preserve our nostalgia. So let this be my warning to you that we really don't have ownership or agency over our digital lives, or digital past for that matter. Because when you agree to those terms and conditions, you're signing off on the possibility that your memories can be swept away as the digital landscape continues to evolve. Okay, final thoughts. I really liked making this video. It really made me assess what I need to do to feel more present and have more agency over my life. The biggest takeaway has got to just be to unplug, right? Like, let yourself live out your life instead of letting the digital age overrun it. And I have been making strides to do so. I think I've mentioned that we have a record player now. Josh got it for me last Christmas, and so we've been slowly building a collection. And I had a moment of serendipity, I must essay the other day, or a couple weeks ago. I was in London Drugs just looking at vinyls, and I saw one that had a really cool cover art, and I wish I could say that I just bought it in the moment, like so whimsical, but vinyls are expensive, so I just took note of it at home, listened to the album, confirmed I liked it, went back, bought it, and now it's my favorite album to listen to while I'm just going about my day in the house. I don't even know the artist's name because I just know the cover art, but I'll put it on the screen, and it feels like such a special thing because it just happened. There was no suggestions, there was no algorithm, nothing was pre-planned. I just stumbled upon something, which is a novelty in and of itself in 2026. I'm rambling. Anyway, final thoughts are supposed to be short. Moral of the story is to disconnect, live your life a little, but I guess that's all we can do. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe for more video essays, or check out my merch if you'd like. All the proceeds go to the Essay Foundation. Other than that, I wish you a week of living in the moment. Bye.